Well, every 3 years the Council has to produce a long-term plan. So for the 2015-2025 year, the Council has to spell out its program of works and its levels of service and how it's going to fund those. So we've got some major issues in the next 10 years that we have to get to grips with, and we're asking the ratepayers and the residents to give us some feedback on those key issues. Now, some of those key issues include reducing the levels of service. For example, the government, or the NZTA, are reducing its funding for roads by 1% a year. So they're roughly giving us 60% at the moment. That's going to reduce by 1%. So we are suggesting that the level of service for roads will be less smooth, and they'll reduce over that 10-year period, and our footpath program is going to reduce as well. So we need some feedback on that. There are some works that we have to do, and we've got a problem with sewage treatment for Kennington residents, so they're going to connect on to the pipeline, and that's going to come into the city sewage treatment plant. The wastewater treatment plant at Clifton needs to have some money spent, about $1 million, to upgrade it so that the consents can still be used going forward in the future. But the major issue that's facing us infrastructure-wise is our water pipes. We've got asbestos pipes, about 47% of our network is water pipes, and some testing has shown that those pipes may not last the 100 years or the 65 years that they were expected to do, and so therefore we're going to have to progressively increase our program of water improvement and replacing those pipes. So that's going to cost over $20 million in the next 10-year plan. So we need some feedback. We've also looking at the levels of service for parks and reserves, and that's, we've got a very high level of parks compared to the national average, and some of those parks aren't getting utilised. So what we've decided to do is maybe sell some of those off and reduce those number of parks and transfer the money into the existing parks that are getting well used, that need new equipment. We're also looking at the Splash Palace, which is really a success story, and it's getting a lot of use at the moment at Splash Palace, but the changing facilities there are inadequate. And we're also looking at a fitness centre there as well to help cope or help pay for that.
We need to extend Splash Palace really for two main reasons. There are two key components, I think, to this. First of all, we're exceeding by a long way the design limitations on the building. And I mean that in terms of the number of people that we have entering the facility. So last year, for example, we had over 370,000 people come through, and the numbers were just never estimated to be that high. And as a result of that, we're running out of things like changing room space, car parking is an issue. We see problems in our cafe and foyer area getting comprised because of the number of people in there. So these plans really address that issue. And the second thing, of course, is that we've had feedback over the years that suggests people would like to see a gymnasium at Splash Palace. And what we believe we can do through the addition of a gym is that we can fund both the gymnasium and the additional change room space and foyer space and kill two birds with one stone, if you like. It's funded through loan funding, so we would take a loan for the entire works, and that loan would be repaid through user charges over 20 years, so there's no rate funding that goes into this project.
Council's produced a park strategy which looked at the appropriateness of ground and reserve areas in the Invercargill district, and each of those areas have a different category, whether it's a playground or a sports field or whatever, and that has revealed some surpluses in some areas, and also then they've produced a play strategy which indicated where the play equipment should be relating to where the children are in the Invercargill district. Currently we have 80 neighbourhood parks, and each of those have got one or two pieces of equipment on. This will be reduced down to 52, which will have a better range of equipment on for children to play, give them greater play experience. At this stage, they're considering disposal of approximately 10 areas, and a lot of these undeveloped areas that have been obtained in the past where the city hasn't grown. And so the idea is to rationalise those and end up with reserve areas. They'll go through this process. People can consult through the long-term plan on whether they want to see the reserve disappear from the area, and if council decides to go ahead with it, we'll then advertise again via the Reserves Act and give people a second chance at putting submissions in on it.
At the moment in the consultation document there's three prime areas. Firstly there's the water supply issue where we're looking to renew the AC mains earlier than we had expected, and within the stormwater and sewage areas there's pipes that are coming to the end of their lives as well, and they need to be replaced. And in the roading area there are some changes to the way it's funded and the level of service that we're looking to provide going forward. Within the water pipes, the AC pipes were laid, asbestos cement pipes were laid in the 1950s through to the 1980s, and they had an original life of about 65 years. But what we've found through some recent bursts and some sampling is that those pipes are starting to fail earlier than we had expected. So within the consultation document there is a proposal to actually bring those planned renewals forward from where they previously were. So that's about $55 million over the next 10 years is planned to upgrade those pipes. So what that will mean is that there is a rise in the amount that ratepayers are asked to contribute for the water section. And within the consultation document it gives some options that they can select and give some feedback on. Within roading there's two things that are happening. One is the New Zealand Transport Agency provide council and other councils throughout the country with funding, and what's been indicated over the next 9 years that's going to reduce by 1%. So what we will find is that ratepayers will have to contribute more. But at the same time they've also indicated that our roads are actually smoother than the national average of roads. So what they're also asking us is for us to do less work on them, and then they reduce towards that average, and that's over the next 9 years that'll be occurring. On an individual carriageway, section by section, people won't see much, but what it does mean is that they will get slightly rougher, and we'll have to focus and prioritise where we actually undertake works.
The real problem that we're looking at and asking for feedback on is that the rate increase for next year is proposed to be 3.71 and an average of about 3.8 over the next 10 years. We've got a lot of people on fixed incomes, and affordability issues are a concern. So we want to get some feedback from the ratepayers and residents, how they feel about that. Are we spending too much? Are we not spending enough in the right areas? Are the levels of service that we're proposing to provide in the next 10 years, are they adequate or not adequate? So submissions starting on the 25th of April and go through to the 25th of May. You can get a copy of our website or from the Service Centre in Bluff, the library, or at the Civic Administration Building. And submissions are open, and we'd like to get your feedback and input into those.